I'm so excited to have our guest today. I know I had the pleasure of meeting Kelly 2 years ago, I would say, right?
Yeah.
About 2 years ago, she and her husband, Larry, came in the office. We attend the same church. And she had said, they were just really wanted to see what we did here, what I did. And they came in, called, made an appointment. And I remember thinking, man, how brave of a person. I could never do that. And so just getting to know her over the last few years and walk through with her what she experienced, it was such a cool experience. So I'm so excited for you, Tiffany, to hear her story today. And also for everybody listening, just to hear a little bit about what she walked through, how she got out of it, where she is today. So thanks for being here.
Yeah. Oh, Kelly, man, I am excited to hear your story. Really thrilled. Amber's told me a little bit, and we are just pumped to have you on here today. So if you would, just tell me how you met Amber and kind of go through, husband, kids, life, what got you to Florida.
Yeah.
Just tell us everything.
Wow. Okay. Well, this is exciting to be here, ladies. Thank you for having me. So gosh, all right. I'm a mom of 4 beautiful daughters, and I'm also a wife of 21 years to my husband, Larry. And in order for us to get to Florida, so in 2018, we got this wild idea that we were going to take our kids on a year-long adventure in a motorhome.
Fun.
And we wanted them to see the world. We'd had the chance to, see so much. And so we put almost everything in storage, and we piled in 400 square feet with 5 women and a husband. And we decided to go out and see the country. Pretty crazy. It was the greatest thing we ever did. It was the hardest thing we ever did, but we chased the weather on that trip. And in Florida, of course, in the winter, it's warm. So we decided to come to the Sarasota area, and we had traveled a lot. So we wanted to stick here close to, one spot for a bit. And that gave my oldest daughter, who was a freshman in high school at the time, a chance to get away from us, so to say, and go spend some time with some peers. She knew one girl here through a friend. And she went to youth group night, and it was a really neat experience for her. She came home and she plopped herself on the bed and said, "Mom, I think we're supposed to move to Florida."
Aww.
And she's always been like a worshiper and was looking for an opportunity to do that. And so that sparked the interest. And then we began to really pray about it and decide if this was for our family. So we did say yes. We finished our trip though, so we weren't done. That was January.
I don't know how you did that, by the way. I did 30 days in an RV with a dog in the family. And I literally was like, okay, how do people do this? So the fact that you did it for a year.
A year.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a lot.
Kudos.
It
Great
was.
job.
But it changed a lot about our family, and it created like a bond that was so unique and special. And it's still today been like a catapult for our journey and kind of this season of our life. But anyway, so at that point we finished our trip, and in May we had planned to move back to Florida, permanently. And so in about mid-May, we'd signed on a lease, and, we got ourselves here, and we were really excited to start our new life here, in Florida. And about 24 to 48 hours after we moved here, we got wind that we were going to be invited to a conference call for a current business that we had done, which this business was incredible. It had just changed our life. It's what we had done for the last 10 years to make money for our family. And it changed really everything for us. But it felt really weird, like something wasn't right, that we knew we were going on this conference call. And at that point, we were taking our U-Haul back after we'd moved into the home here in Florida. And my husband got a call that had somewhat warned him that he thought that this call was going to be probably the worst news we could ever get.
Wow.
And at that point, we learned sadly that this company was going to restructure their entire business plan, and that we were no longer going to be able to earn income. And that was the company and business that we did solely.
Wow.
And we had done it for 10 years, which is what had afforded us to get on the road and travel, because we worked from home. And we were able to do that experience with our kids. And we thought that moving to Florida was going to be this like new journey as a part of that business. Right. It was part of the reason, addition to my daughter's kind of belief this is where we were to come. that it was going to be a way for us to continue building that company and our life here. So that's really, in a nutshell, kind of how we got to Florida, and then what set me up for the introduction to Amber.
That's incredible. So when you heard that news, what did you and your husband, what did you guys do? How'd you feel?
Yeah. I mean, initially my husband, he's not necessarily a crier, so to say, but he did cry that day very hard. And he did it in front of his girls, which was, it might have been the first time they'd ever seen anything like that from him. Wow. But, you know, when you are the sole provider for 5 women in your home and the weight of responsibility of that on him, it just, he was in a state of shock. He was so proud of what he had built and done for his family and his girls. And he spoke about that publicly so often with them hearing him. So the fact that this was no longer going to be, he was pretty shook up.
And I think too, what people don't realize is you can be on top of the world. I know for Ryan and I, we were mortgage brokers and making great money, and we had this great life, and a nanny who spoke no English. And, you know, it was kind of like that movie, Having Fun with Dick and Jane, right? Sure. So literally when the music stopped, when the mortgage industry crashed, it was like, oh, all right, well, the income's gone, but we have all this stuff. And I can imagine for you and Larry in that moment, sitting on that phone and receiving that news, it's kind of like, well, it's not like you can stop your life and get rid of everything that you've built and sell your cars and your houses. And it's almost like, here we are. How are we going to push through this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, as silly as it sounds, we did the whole, what are we going to do when we grow up? We had that like we had to go back foundationally in our mind and think, this is the direction we thought our life was going to go. Yeah. And now that it's taken away, now what? Now what are we going to do? And, you know, the great news is that all of that experience for the decade prior to that moment, we had learned to work in such a unique way. Yep. We had learned to hustle. I love to use that word.
Me too.
We had learned to, you know, just put the pedal to the metal. And that's how we even built that company before. So we had it in us.
Yes.
We just didn't know we were going to have to like tap back into that and start over, you know? Anyway.
But thank God you were wired for that.
Yeah.
And I always say, you know, there's a lot of people out there that want to do that. They want to hit certain levels in their life, but they don't have the wiring for it.
That's right.
They aren't built for it. So the fact that you're built for it at any point in time in your life, insert the widget and you're off to the races, because that's the gifting that God's given you guys. So that's so cool.
Yeah.
So fear-wise, like I'm sure I remember when Mike and when I found out that we had the debt that we had, and I just had like this frozen moment of, oh my gosh, like I didn't even know if I could put a foot in front of the other. Like, how are we going to get out of this? And immediately I just started to sink. Is that kind of how you guys felt? Is that where you were? Yeah. Or did it slowly come on?
Well, you know, we had some cars. Sure. 2 of our oldest daughters were in competitive horseback training. So we had 2 horses in full-time training, which if you're unaware of that, it's a whole nother level. It's a whole nother ball game. But so that was that. We had just purchased this beautiful Class A motorhome that we were traveling in. It was essentially our house. We had some property back where we were from before. We had just taken on this large new home here in Florida. I mean, there was just all these things. And then in addition, we had to, you know, now start over with what we currently had. So over the course of that year after this happened in May, we had put ourselves back into an enormous amount of debt to survive through that. So, funny thing, how I met Amber, which is like a great story. So my husband is a networker, right? Yes. Just from life experience. And through church, in a business networking, he had met Amber and knew who she was and came home to me and said, I have somebody that we're supposed to meet. And when he says this, typically I'm the one that's like, really? Why do we have to do this? Right. You always put me in these situations, which I will say I've learned to trust. Because he has such an incredible instinct to that. And he said, you know what, I tell you what, I just feel like we're supposed to meet her.
Wow.
He said, either A, we're supposed to know her, or she knows somebody that we're supposed to know.
So funny.
And she's an entrepreneur, Kelly. I think you'd be blown away if you would just meet this person. So yeah, he's brave like that. He's willing to just go get in front of people, which again, when you talk about how people are wired, with a gifting to just go build, go do, go make something happen. That is him. He's kind of the forefront runner of that in our life. But anyway, so we got a chance to come in and meet you.
Yeah, I still remember to the day they came in, and Kelly was very similar to myself. Our stories were so similar, and it allowed me the opportunity to share kind of what I walked through, both in my marriage, but also with debt and filing bankruptcy. And, I could kind of see her just watching me and listening. And then I saw her kind of shed the walls a little bit and start to share with me, which I loved, because if there's one thing about me is I always want to create a space for people to share. I'm a very private person too, so I could relate with Kelly. I keep everything really close. I don't open up to many people, but I just felt this connection with her. And she was actually hysterical too. I don't know what it was, but I love being around funny people anyways, but things she would say, I was like, oh my gosh, I love her sense of humor. So anyways, the conversation allowed it to just kind of go organically where it went.
Yeah. I honestly had no idea why we were coming in here to meet you.
You said that, remember?
I mean, I was like, I don't know why we're here.
Exactly.
Larry thinks we need to meet. This is awkward. Like, okay.
Yes.
But quickly, what was amazing is that as you began to share your story, I think I remember thinking, now I am getting it. Now I know why I'm supposed to be meeting you, because I was starting to connect with you on such a heart level. And, even though you were sharing some of your past, and what you were sharing was bringing me back to my past from many years ago with my husband, I felt like, oh my gosh, me too. And I think that, when you get a me too, or a feeling of somebody's being transparent and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one.
Yes.
I think you just allowed me to feel a sense of comfort. And I started to think, okay, maybe there's a reason I'm here and I can trust this person because she's just like me. And I think we just made this like great connection.
Totally. It was almost spiritual.
Yeah.
I think that there's no coincidence. And so when I met her, even she provided the same space for me. I felt safe. I felt like she could relate. She heard me. She understood. She's been there. And I think that's what so many people crave in life too, is just they want to feel like you have something in common, truly, that you get them, you understand. And then the trust opens up.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I got even a little teary-eyed because I was going back there in my heart and mind, and, just, wow, we are really connecting. And then I remember at some point it's like, oh, okay, so what else do you do?
Yeah. Well, little of this, little of that, cupcakes, debt, I just kind of went through, built a gym, went through all these things with her. And she was like, tell me about that debt thing.
Yes. It was a trigger word for me. It was like, wait a second, I think there was a piece of me that was just, hoping and praying that a solution would help us, get out of this situation. And we had already, at this point, it's been a year since that happened. And we had started the snowball of life. And, we had been able to try to figure out what is it we're going to be when we grow up. Like I said, we had began to tap into some thoughts and opportunities. And, I'll even share that my husband, at one point, he was out looking for a job, which he had never done a resume in his life.
Wow.
He has a college degree, but he came out of college working for his family and helping them build their business. And then, like I said, 10 years ago, when we started our own business, he didn't have to have a resume for that. That was us building that from scratch from the very beginning. So the idea of now I have to, should I write a resume? Do I start it? What are we going to do? And so anyway, I remember even at one point in that year, he had gone to, we had gone from making about $500,000 a year from this company on a regular basis to now my husband is interviewing at the Home Depot.
hilarious, first of all,
Wow.
because that's exactly what Ryan said. He says it all the time. I don't care if I had to go to Home Depot. That's what I was going to do. And I could just envision him, which Home Depot is a great company, don't
sure.
get me wrong. But just the willingness of them to do whatever it took in that season, I think speaks volumes to who they are as the leaders of the household. But truly, it was like Home Depot, like after all that we've built with the mortgage company.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because it's minimum hour.
Yes.
And I remember too, the hardest part of that, he was so humble, went in there, proud to try to get a job. And the gentleman was even telling him, I'm sorry, but you're overqualified for this.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So he was even like deflated
Right.
from his Home Depot
Right.
view. It was like, can we get a win here? Right.
Oh,
like,
right.
I think it's powerful to humble yourself in that way.
Yes, it is.
Well, I think one of the big things is that debt kind of puts you in a situation, or this is what I've found, that you feel lonely and you feel like you've been secluded even from your spouse.
Mhm.
I felt at times like I can't even talk to him about what I'm feeling. Like, how's he going to understand, that I feel like I'm sinking? And I immediately felt like I sunk the moment I found out about all the debt. I'm like, oh, I can just feel it. And just the fear of it. And I'm sure that your husband felt the same way, having to go. I mean, here's the cool part is that he felt like, man, I've got to get out there and provide for my family, which is,
Yeah, that's
I mean,
amazing.
there's something to say
That's
for
right.
that, right?
Mhm.
In the middle of all of the struggle, but also the fact that he's like, what is happening? And I'm sure he knew he was overqualified, right? But he would have done anything to take care of you and the girls. And there's just something special about that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and he was at such an emotional state. He was at such a sensitive, I guess is a word, such a sensitive state in that time. And, like you mentioned, if talking to him made me, I didn't want to always go talk to him like you said about it, because the last thing I wanted to do was to make him feel like he wasn't providing.
Right.
So, when it comes to this conversation between husband and wife in a season of that, it's like men are wired to provide.
Right.
Right.
And so if I'm going to him in this panic, anxiety state all the time,
Yeah.
what are we going to do? Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? How are we going to make this happen? Which is all the thoughts I was having all the time, right?
That's a
How
whole
will
nother
we
level.
make this happen? I knew that was going to be really like almost too much
Mhm.
to do to him. So then I sort of sat alone in it a lot and didn't want to do it because I've watched my husband, and I think if that's at his deepest core, that's who he is he feels he was designed on this earth
Mhm.
now as an adult to take care of and provide for 5 women.
Right.
Because we have 4 daughters and myself. And that's his mission, is to provide for us, So you just got to be real careful, when you're in that journey. It was just delicate for us.
Well, the toll it takes on a husband and wife. I mean, there's so many people out there right now that are going through exactly what we've all gone through.
Right.
And they're like, oh, I don't even know that it should take this kind of toll on a marriage. But I mean, I think that's very normal. I mean,
It's one of the number one reasons for divorce. I mean, finance, when you have made so much money and it falls off overnight, and you see so many couples who never survive or make it through to the other side of that just because of the finance piece alone and the strain it puts on the marriage, the children, every area of their life is under a microscope during times like that. So the fact that you guys survived it too, what a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
So you came and you met with Amber, and you guys connected, and you decided, hey, I'm going to get a hold of this, or you and your husband. We're going to get a hold. We're going to take control over our debt. We're going to figure this stuff out. So when you did that, tell us about how you laid it out. How did you lay it out? How did you walk through this process over the past, 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
She literally did it in 1 year.
That's incredible.
Incredible.
It's incredible.
And I'll never forget, it was like the highlight of my night when she walked into the Charlotte Gamble event. She got off the elevator and she looked at me and she goes, today was my final settlement payment. I'm out of debt. And I was like, I still have chills. That to me is what I love to see, is people who get it like she did and run with it and get to the finish line and look back and be like, I did it. She could do it again if she had to.
Yeah.
But it's the people that she's going to be able to pour into and help, who are walking through the exact same thing Kelly and Larry did. and she's going to be able to show them a way out, which to me is a gift.
Yeah. Well, when I met with you that day, I remember you sharing you had a debt solution company, and this is kind of what you do is you help people get out of debt. You have a solution for that. And that word solution, I'm thinking, it's like a buzzword for me, because at that moment in my life, I was extremely embarrassed. I didn't have a solution. And the comfort, it was so funny. I remember you going, "Oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be so easy. I can help you." The relief that took from me in that moment, it was almost like, you were just like an answered prayer right there, right? That I had been praying for an answer. But to say to someone who feels so trapped and scared and they don't know what to do and they don't even know where to start. And then someone looks at you with such confidence and says, "Oh yeah, I've been there. Oh, I can help you. That's super easy. You'll be fine." And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'll be fine.
Your face said it too. Her face was like, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think so. Fine. Maybe you don't know me. Maybe you don't know my situation.
Yeah.
Maybe you're unsure what's really going on in my home, because everything's going to be fine was like when somebody just like takes an issue and boop, just makes it disappear. That's like, like a miracle, right? Almost feeling. But anyway, yeah, you just said, well, you shared some things about, how to begin the journey. And you began to tell me that I was going to have to make some pretty tough decisions, and I was going to have to first decide I was going to do it.
That's
I remember that was the very first thing. You're going to decide in your mind that you're going to do it, and then you're going to trust me because I'm going to give you the steps in order to make this happen, and then you're going to walk those out. And
that's a big piece, though.
Yeah.
Trusting somebody else is a very difficult thing, especially for people like you and I.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're
we
strangers. And you're right. And so when she looked at me, and that's why it's so important when you're walking through a debt situation, getting the right advice and being able to trust someone with experience who's walked through it. And I looked at her situation and I had seen so many cases like Kelly's, but something about her, I knew she was committed. She was ready. She was at the point where she's like, I want this to go away. And just reassuring her, there's no such thing as creditor's prison. There's nothing they can do to you. They are scaring you right now. And we are going to walk through this. I'm going to do it with you. And I think it was actually just as enjoyable for myself to watch her succeed at it, because she did a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You challenged me to that. You said, I think actually you can do this.
Yes.
I'm just going to tell you what to do, and then you're going to do it. And I remember going, but what happens when I don't make a payment? What does that look like? Because I've never done that before. And then what happens when they come and get me? And you just laughed. And that's okay. It was like, nobody's going to come and get you.
Right.
That's not how this works. I don't know. It was just, I just needed somebody to provide a solution. And then, they were just like the safety net for me, to start taking the steps. And so, yeah, gosh, that next year, it was just a matter of me putting one foot in front of the other. I remember calling you a couple times.
Yes.
One night I called you. I remember it was like on a Friday night. I'm thinking, she has probably got all these plans. I just got this letter and this is what they're saying. And am I going to jail? Right?
Which is funny because, that's the plan of collection agencies. They want to scare people. You. They have quotas to make, you guys. So when I hear someone that's dealing with that, my heart breaks because it's like they really feel that something bad is going to happen to them. And so for me, it's just as big of a gift to be able to relieve someone of the stress and emotional trauma that happens from creditors. And it doesn't have to be that way. So she was receptive to it. She was ready. She was committed, and she saved, which is another big piece of the puzzle. Yeah. Throughout the process, when you're dealing with debt, it's one thing to not pay the creditors to get in a position. It's another to be putting that money away to save so that when you do reach some type of settlement, it's ready to go. And she was committed to that process and did it the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I, instead of making the payments, I saved the money.
That's right.
Yeah. Over time.
Yep.
And then I was able to close the deal pretty quickly. And I did it by myself.
So impressed.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
But,
you did it.
Crazy.
Yeah.
You did it.
Well,
it was awesome.
The great news about that is you were disciplined, right? And a lot of people are not. So just the fact that you told her what to do,
Yeah.
she made the decision, and then she was disciplined enough to take the steps and trust you through the process. I mean, I think that's incredible. You've got an incredible story. I've loved hearing it.
Yeah.
So where are you at now?
Yes.
Gosh, it's so fun. Instead of just one business kind of endeavor that we were in for so long, we own 3 different companies now and started those from scratch.
That's incredible.
We also are partnering and helping a couple other companies build their company. So we've expanded our portfolio. We've gone a whole different kind of level of entrepreneurship this season. And
diversification.
Yes. That's been the largest lesson I learned through that journey of my story. And life is good. We're back to dreaming again.
That's
and
awesome.
Just building a great life here.
That's so incredible. I'm so proud of you guys. I'm happy for you guys. I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story, because I know it's going to impact so many individuals who experience the same thing, but just don't even know how to talk about it because it's such an ooey topic.
Sure.
So if anything, I hope people listening today, if there's an opportunity for them to reach out or get even in contact with us to talk further about it, I think it would be such a great thing to see more Kellys, more vulnerability from people, because that's where the help is. Throughout our lives, I think everything that we do is like a test, right?
Sure.
But it's also the first part of that word testimony, because if a testimony is simply just sharing what happened to you,
right?
It doesn't mean it's necessarily good or bad, but you being vulnerable enough to share with people that, hey, I've been there. And hey, I have for sure. I mean, I had to dress the kids up and get in the WIC line every week. I mean, I was there. So I can relate with it. I have so much compassion for people going through it, but I also am just super proud of you for the work that you've done. And I know that you're going to use it and it's going to propel you guys so far in the future. I don't know how, but I know you're going to be able to use it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing.
I can't thank you enough for helping to save our family.
Yeah.
So Kelly, let me ask you one thing.
Yeah.
As we're closing up. So if you had one thing that you could share with the audience and the people that are listening, and there's people out there that are hurting the way you were then, if you can take yourself back to that moment and you had one thing that you could share that you think would really make a difference, what would that be?
I mean, I guess just the lesson that I learned, and that there is a way out. You feel like there's no way out. There are ways out. You can do this.
Yeah.
So if you are listening, I guess just know you can get out of this. You can. And right now we're talking about one of those solutions. There's probably lots of solutions and things for you. But for me, it was, I just needed a very simple step by step. Here's what you do. And then here's what you're going to do when this happens. And then here's what you're going to do. And I just trusted. I was teachable and I just walked that out. And it was, now looking back, I'm thinking I was so nervous to do this. Like I was doing something wrong. And yet looking back now, I'm thinking that was so simple.
Now you know why
it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but it was simple.
Easy. It was simple.
It was so simple.
Yeah.
And now I'm here.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Great story. Great story. Well, listen, we want to thank you for being here. Amber, I love being here with you, and I love that you guys had such an incredible story and connection. So it's been beautiful to see it play out and actually hear how this happened. It's incredible.
Yeah. Thanks.